Hi, I'm Isaac Hill and I'm out here in my praria, and this is an invasive native plant. This is cup plant, or Silphium perfoliatum. It's called that because the stem perforates the leaves, which creates these little cups which hold water after rains and after dew. That water then becomes available to tree frogs, bees, any other small animals that desire a quick dip for some fluid for their hydration. It has these beautiful yellow flowers, which bumblebees love, and all sorts of other native insects. And it has a tremendous amount of biomass. In fact, it's used in biogas production as a biomass plant. It has some medicinal uses as well, and it's in the beautiful Silphium genus, which also hosts plants such as prairie dock and compass plant, which are the kings of the prairie. To me, this plant is a very interesting example of a problem in how we think about native plants. It's not considered native to this location in central New York, but it is considered native about 100 miles south in northeastern Pennsylvania. And about 120 miles from there, in Connecticut, it's considered a noxious weed. How is that possible? I think it comes from the definition of what a native is. And it is an example of a problem in our thinking. The definition that a lot of people have for a native is that if it was growing in a particular location in North America in 1491, it's native to that location. And if it wasn't growing there, then it's not native. Now, this is a useful definition for some purposes, but what it does is ignore the very changeable nature, of climate, and of ecosystems. What the problem is really, to me, is that we see nature as a static backdrop for humans to act upon, right? And it's important to note that in this area, in central New York, about 12,000 years ago, during the last ice age, there weren't very many native plants because we were under many feet of ice. Nature is constantly changing. It's changing at an accelerated rate currently. Where I live here, about 20 years ago, in the 90s, it was considered to be in the climate zone 4. Now we're in climate zone 5B. That's a big jump. Nature is not static, and we are not separate from nature. We are animals. We might have opposable thumbs and a big brain, but we're animals, and we're a keystone species. We can change the environment to a large degree, which is partially why we're in such a predicament. But as negatively as we can affect the environment, we can also affect it positively. And that's why, in my opinion, one of the true purposes of a human is to garden. We are part of nature, and nature is much bigger than us. Gaia is much larger than us, and we like to think we're in charge, but we're not really. But we can do our part, and I think that growing native plants is a very helpful thing to do at this time, especially if you're in the suburbs, and growing plants that are native to your location, to your county, very helpful. But I think it's also helpful to grow plants that are not native. And if you're growing a kitchen garden, if you're doing permaculture, a lot of times you're planting a lot of plants that are not native. Another thing that I think is that it's our duty as humans living in this time to help plants migrate. So pecans, persimmons, American persimmons, Diospyros virginiana, pawpaws, Asimina triloba. There are all sorts of plants, Chickasaw plums. There are all sorts of plants that are very useful to humans and to other species that, at least in central New York, we are at the northern end of their possible growing area. None of those plants are actually native to this county, but by the end of my lifetime, we very well may be in growing zone 7B. It's possible. And it very well may be the case that in Georgia, in North Carolina, in northern Florida, in Texas, where persimmon and pecan are very common, they're not going to be able to live anymore. So it's part of our duty to help plant those trees in the northern border of their possible range. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm doing my part. I live in the country. I've got a lot of native plants around, but I grow my native praria with plants that are native to east of the Ohio River, with plants that are native to the broad or eastern North America. And that may be annoying to some native plant purists, but that's fine with me. It also may be annoying to some permaculturists that I have a lot of lawn or that I grow ornamental plants. And it may be annoying to ornamental plant growers that I have such a messy garden and grow so many weedy plants. But this is what I like to do. This is where I find my joy. And there's this concept that I learned from John Michael Greer called dissensus. And often these days we think there's just one right answer. And we use consensus to come up with that one right answer that everyone goes off and does. But dissensus is the idea that we all go off in a lot of different directions, following our own paths, see what works and what doesn't work, and come back to the group and share. It's a do-ocracy, as it were. And that's what I really recommend to people. Don't let native plant purists shame you for growing plants outside of their native range. Don't let permaculturists shame you for having some lawn. And don't let ornamental gardeners shame you for being a little bit messy. What I like to do is take the best from all the different approaches and make it in my own way. And so I'm just here to say, for you, keep on trucking, keep on gardening, and follow that joy in your heart. That's the connection to nature. That's a connection to your true will. And that's how we're going to find our way through the predicament that we're in.